Welcome. I'm Matthew Hall. Today we're going to be looking at some data I collected online from Wilcox County Middle School. This is a middle school located in Rochelle, Georgia, which is a small rural farming town in South Georgia, and we're about 3 hours south of Atlanta. The purpose of the presentation today is I want to use some data to discover the strengths and weaknesses of student learning at WCMS. With such a focus now on using writing to learn in all content areas, I wanted to take a little time to look at some data focused on writing at WCMS. The first amount of information we're going to look at is just some general demographics from WCMS as a whole. And then after that, we're going to break it down further into 8th grade demographics. And then from there, I'm going to use those 8th grade demographics to look at some scores from the 8th grade writing assessment. The demographic profile that we're going to look at is going to cover about 3 years worth of data coming from 2011 up to early 2014. We will review this data in numerous charts, which I hope you'll be able to use these charts to guide us later into further conversation on possible solutions to increase the writing skills of our students. Here we have the total enrollment for WCMS from 2012, 2013, and 2014. You can see that enrollment has increased by 9 students from 2012 to 2013, but then we decreased down and lost 12 students when we went into 2014. The next slide you see is a breakdown by race of the total students at WCMS. We have a majority of African American and white students with our population. We have about high 30, low 40% African Americans with 50 to 60% white students. We have 2 subgroups that I wanted to focus on at WCMS. They are students with disabilities, and this is going to cover any of our special ed students. And we also will cover the economically disadvantaged students. And here I have the free and reduced lunch counts. And you can see that we were really high in 2012, dropped back in 2013, and then really went past in 2014 to a really high economically disadvantaged population. The next slide is our faculty demographics. The 2012 and 2013, there was not much change in the faculty. In 2014, there was an increase in the number of males employed at WCMS, but the majority still stays the same, with most of our faculty being white females. So far, we've looked at the increase and then decrease in enrollment. We covered that African American and white students continue to make up the majority of our population. There have been increases in both economically disadvantaged students and students with disabilities, and the faculty count has increased in the last year. There's been a slight increase in male population, but majority is still white females. Now, we want to go further into the demographics and focus just on 8th grade. 8th grade gender. The population has no steady increase or decrease, but the 2014 was marked as a very low 8th grade population. The population for gender is usually slightly more, as you see, slightly more males than females. 8th grade by race, still the majority African American and white, but there's a significant increase in white population versus the African Americans here. The 8th grade subgroups look a lot like these subgroups for the school as a whole. There's an increase in the averages. It looks like they've decreased some but when you average them out to the number of student population, they are staying about the same with a slight increase. So far with the 8th grade population, we have determined that 8th grade fluctuates each year with no steady increase or decrease in student numbers. On average, there are slightly more males than females in 8th grade each year. White students make up the majority of our population, closely followed by the African American population, and subgroups have increased slightly in 8th grade. Now, down to the 8th grade writing assignment. The 8th grade writing assessment, known as EGWA on the state report card, is covering the scores of the writing test that the 8th graders take. You can see that on this chart that we're scoring the students that are below level in purple, on level in blue, and exceeded in green. And we're looking okay with, there's a pretty good bit of on level in blue and a little bit of green. And here they are, it's the same data again in a pie chart, and it helps you see the relationships to the different levels a little bit better. We still have majority of blue on level students and a small amount of exceeds with a little higher amount of below level students. Here we have the 8th grade writing assessment scores of WCMS versus the state averages. In 2012, the on-level students, we were scoring about 2% higher than the state average, which was really good. But then if you continue to look on in 2013 and 14, we dropped well below the state average. So we want to find out what changed from 2012 into 2013 and 14. Here we have the 8th grade writing assessment breakdown by race from WCMS. In 2012, you see that there is a higher amount of African American students scoring on level than white, but with that we also want to include the on level as well as the exceeding scores, and see that there is a higher amount of white students scoring on level or exceeding on the writing assessment than the African American students. The 8th grade writing assessment by gender at WCMS shows that each year we have while our population is higher in males, we have a higher population of females scoring higher on the writing test. So what are we doing different that are making the lower population of females score higher than the males on the test? Here we have our subgroups for the 8th grade writing assessment, still the economically disadvantaged and students with disabilities. In 8th grade each year there was such a low number of students with disabilities that there was not enough to score on the report card, but we still see that we serve a great amount of economically disadvantaged students with high amounts of them being on level on the writing assessment. So far with the writing assessment demographics, we saw that students scoring on level from the 8th grade writing assessment have remained constant with population changes. WCMS steadily dropped below the Georgia average for on-level students. There's a significantly higher number of white students scoring on level or exceeds than African American students. There has been a steady trend that females are scoring better than males. And in 8th grade, the number of economically disadvantaged students increased, but students with disabilities remained low. Now, looking at all of that data, I want us to go back and I want us to think, how can we increase writing skills of our students before they get to 8th grade? We needed to be doing things in 6th and 7th grade to get them ready for this test well before they come to 8th grade. We want to talk about why are white students writing more effectively than black students. What are we doing in our classrooms that we maybe could differentiate a little different to draw interest of all of our students versus different subgroups? And that would carry over into the next one of how can we increase writing skills for our male students. We saw that we have a higher male population and a total, but we have females scoring better on the test. So what can we do to bring in that interest for all of our students and not just focus on these same subgroups scoring high each year?